This is the Blackprint, where being black is always the topic of conversation. The Blackprint is brought to you by Rhymes and Designs and Good Evil Art. Welcome back to the Blackprint. It's your host, MJ. Today's topic is unity or stupidity? ? So a couple of episodes back, I talked about how black people can perpetuate anti-blackness, that we're not exempt from, upholding anti-blackness. And of course, that negatively affects our community and definitely impedes our progress as a community. Oppression exists in so many different forms, and it affects so many different people. And for, the melanated people of the world, the oppressor is often non-melanated population of people. And yes, that's true. And so there are reasons to unite. But my issue with this whole call, I have several issues with this whole call for, unifying with other communities. First of all, if we're not strong, if our community is not unified, if we're not connected, if we don't communicate, if we can't sit down and talk about our issues and figure out ways to, counteract and to combat all of this oppression, if we're not unified, only black people can understand the unique struggles of black people, then how can we unify with other communities and advocate on behalf of ourselves? If we haven't come together, then I definitely don't think that we would be as effective and that we could really achieve our goals and our aims just by unifying with other groups. But one of the really big things about this whole call for unifying with other communities is that anti-blackness is not just something that exists in the white community. It exists in all of the other communities, even our own community, but only people that make up our community can combat anti-blackness in the black community. No one else can do that. But I see all of these people and it's like, we're the same. We have the same issues, yada, yada, yada. Like, let's all hold hands. Let's all sing Kumbaya. The white man is the problem. But in reality, anti-blackness is strong in these other communities. Just because you have a friend that doesn't look like you, but you're cool, that does not account for their entire community. It seems to me that unifying with populations of people that want to oppress us, people who, whether they actually believe or whether they pretend that we are inferior. My problem with unifying with non-black people is that I don't see people from other communities fighting anti-blackness in their own community. Sometimes it's not even acknowledged. Like, honestly, you have friends who say are Latino or Asian or indigenous. Sit down with them, talk to them, ask them straight up, how does your community, not you, feel about black people? Because I've heard anti-black sentiments from all of those communities and so many other communities. I've even heard, an anti-African American bias for people who identify as African. Recently, George Lopez, there was an incident at George Lopez's his stand-up show, and George Lopez was going through his standard jokes, and one of the ones that he always seems to include in his act is that, there's 3 things that you can't do in the Mexican community, one of which is marry a black person. And George Lopez, he acts like he's all cool with black people when he's trying to come up in the world or something, or when the black person is around. It's like we're cool, we're family, you know what I'm saying? We have the same struggles, like we're the same, we're one and the same. But he always expresses his anti-black sentiments in his show. And so there was a lady in the audience, and she was black and Mexican, and she stood up and she was like, I guess they would call it heckling him, but she was like, oh, like, that's not funny. And then he just started going off on this lady, calling her all kinds of B's and telling them to, like, kick her out of the show. I mean, that hits on multiple levels. The vulnerability of black women, where everyone feels like they can attack us and come after us. There's no sense of us being a woman. But of course, you have so many examples from the Asian community, like when I forget what the case was, but the cop that shot and killed the black man was Asian, and the Asian people came out to march saying, don't make our cop the scapegoat, even though clearly the cop was in the wrong. The cop was a murderous cop, but just because he was Asian, like all of these people decided to march for that. Don't make the Asian cop the scapegoat. But then those same people weren't marching, against police brutality. They weren't marching, against police brutality in recognition of how often, disproportionately, black people are affected by police brutality. People put on for their own communities on a regular basis, and that often means, putting their boot on our neck. Like you see the incident in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it was a beauty supply shop, and the Asian male owner accused a black woman of stealing eyelashes, which she didn't, but that's irrelevant to the story because his actions were disgusting and disgraceful and so anti-black. You know what I'm saying? It was infuriating. So he accuses her of stealing these eyelashes, and she's like, no, I didn't do it. And so he starts to attack her physically. And then his wife begins to attack her as well. And you see this so-called man kicking this black woman, like manhandling her, just being completely brutal. Just because people will smile in your face does not mean that when they go home, they don't practice, perpetuate, and gladly accept anti-black sentiments. To me, I have an issue with standing next to people who will go right home and call me the N-word. One of the things I've seen with these movements is that when non-black people, including the LGBTQIA community, when they need bodies, they always call to unify with black people because we're militant. We've been fighting the good fight on behalf of other groups of people for a very long time. We go out there and we get the job done. But then when it's just black people issues, a lot of those people are silent. A lot of those people don't show up. All of a sudden, it's like, well, maybe Mike Brown shouldn't have robbed that store. Like, that's even related to this man, to this beast shooting him down. This beast who was, of course, not even aware of that information. But it's always people find some reason to justify, the oppression of black people, the brutalization of black people. Oh, you can't relate to us. The only time you can relate to us is when you want us to fight for your issues. And then while we're standing next to you fighting these good fights, you'll be right back at home calling us the N-word, discriminating us. When we come into your stores as well, you're following us around. Even though it's well established that theft from stores is most often perpetuated by white people because white people don't get watched. They don't get followed. You know what I'm saying? But you're still, all of these people, depending on the situation, depending on where they feel like the power is flowing, they're trying to treat us like animals. They're trying to oppress us, discriminate against us. One of the things I think is so disturbing is when I hear about people being in interracial relationships and then something goes awry in the relationship And that non-black individual goes right into, calling their black significant other monkey, the N-word, like, get your dirty black hands off of me. These people have black children, you know what I'm saying? These children come from a black mother or a black father. Because that person didn't say that, because that person didn't, broadcast that to the world, does that mean that they don't feel that way in their heart? What non-black people are looking to hire us? What non-black people are cheering for us to win? When I'm watching people compete and there's a white person and there's a non-white person, I used to cheer for the non-white person just because. But non-black people don't cheer for black people. Many of those people will cheer for the white person just because they want to see the black person lose, because a lot of these communities, that is the sentiment that they teach their children. That is something that is well understood in their community, is that you want the black population, that you want black people to lose, that you want us to be, at the bottom of the totem pole. And the reason that is because these other communities have made whiteness the standard. A lot of people say, the white population is on top. And to me, that's a very interesting thing to say, because, I think it's completely subjective. It depends on what your morals and values are, of course. Like, on top how? Because white people have raped and pillaged the most, because white people have murdered the most, because white people have been the ones leading the charge for destruction and disarray, because the white population oppresses the most people. I wouldn't put that group of people at the top of the totem pole. Why would we as humans aspire to destroy humanity? That's counterproductive. Our survival instinct is one of our strongest instincts. To perpetuate our species should be our goal. If your goal is destruction, then it's kind of like a cancer. When your body turns on your body, you don't celebrate that. You want to get rid of it, whether you're going to, get chemotherapy, surgery, whatever. I honestly want to know how the human species benefits from all of the misery and destruction and oppression, the savagery. But I feel like these other populations of people, their goal, their standard is whiteness, because having money and power and control over other people's lives instead of, building and growth and beauty and helping people. For some reason, so many populations of people have adopted the destructive route as what is the gold standard. Black people, if we were looking at a spectrum, black people are the farthest from white people. Obviously, we are the original people. Everyone came from us, everyone, but we're on two different sides of the spectrum. And honestly, I think people, besides the idea of money and power and controlling other people's lives, which is almost 100% of the time not used to enrich people's lives, is used for harm, is used to negatively impact others' lives, because that's how you get richer, that's how you get more power, or maybe it's just sadism. I don't know. But I think that a lot of other communities are intimidated by black people, because we can be the best at everything, because we are the original people. Like, there's two ways to look at variations. Either, the variation is better or it's worse. When you think about being on this planet and how much this planet relies on sun, the ability to walk in the sun is very significant to the survival of human beings. So the more you go down the line, the less melanated you are, the less capable you are of existing in harmony with the sun. And for people who have non-black friends, I just wonder to myself, Do you challenge these non-black people to go back into their communities and to fight anti-blackness? Or do you just accept them as individuals? But if this person loves you and cares about you and respects you, then fighting anti-blackness would be a fight that they would take on readily, willingly. That would be something you needed to ask that person. That would be something that's important to them, because if you love somebody, wouldn't you want to make the world better for them? The thing about the Black community is that, of course, every community has issues, of course, but generally harm is not our thing. We want to live. We want to love life. That's what we want to do. I honestly don't think that a lot of Black people even have these kinds of conversations with their non-Black friends where they ask them, like, what do your parents say about Black people? And when they say those things, if the person will actually be honest and tell you what their parents say or people in their community say, do your friends, do your significant others challenge that? Like, when you think about the conversation around sexual assault, you cannot be a bystander in these behaviors, this language, these actions that put people at risk. When someone is telling a joke where, rape is the punchline, if you don't say anything, then that can certainly be taken as you support that sentiment. You're encouraging this person. Yes, it may take, courage, some bravery. You might burn some bridges that should be burnt anyways. But that's the price you have to pay to do what's right. I think as a species, we should be trying to make the world a better place. Not trying to destroy the world, not trying to destroy each other and other species. People don't like to have hard conversations, but then people are always calling to unite with other groups of people, with other populations of people, because that's their best friend, that's their boyfriend, that's their girlfriend, that's their wife, that's their husband, that's their neighbor, that's their colleague, whatever. Until those communities purge themselves of anti-blackness, I'm going to fight for my people. Because from my personal experience, my people are the only people that have my back. Black people show up for all kinds of issues, to fight for all different kinds of people's rights. But then when 100 Black girls go missing in the DC area, who shows up to fight for those Black girls? Us. Just Black people. No one else showed up. No one else felt that was important enough. Hey, it's not our girls. Hey, it's not our community. And I probably won't even get on TV, so why show up at all? But then when I have these issues and either my community is not showing up to fight for these issues, or I just want more people to have some skin in the game, then I'm going to call to sing Kumbaya. I'm not going to stop using the N-word at home. One of the cases, when I first heard about the case, it shocked me. But it was a group of indigenous activists, and they were trying to force the Redskins to change their name because it was offensive. It was wrong. It was racist. You know what I'm saying? But in order to make their point, these activists, one of the indigenous activists were like, oh, what if a team were named something that was extremely offensive to Black people? It's like, why would you use Black people as an example? Black people didn't name the team Redskins. You know what I'm saying? Black people don't necessarily even support that name. Black people haven't done anything to the indigenous population on any grand scale. We all have tiffs, there's issues between individuals on a regular basis. And, sometimes those people are the same race as you, sometimes they're different. But they were quick to throw us under the bus. They were quick to offend us. Were quick to try to denigrate us. That's one of the things I notice about the non-Black populations. They don't ever go after the white population. They don't fight the white population. Like, I look at some of these cases in California, and some Asian students are concerned that their spots are being taken. And there's some validity to those claims if you look at, their GPA and their standardized test scores. And so instead of going after the white people who have really displaced the Asian students, I read some study and it was like if you looked at those scores, then it would be way more Asian students in these universities than they are, but they like to keep the populations pretty much equal between Asian students and white students. And, if you're just looking at GPA and standardized test scores, that shouldn't happen. But instead, these Asian students go for affirmative action. They're like, oh, these unqualified black students are taking our spots. I think in some people's minds, we are supposed to be the weakest population, but it just seems interesting that the weakest population is the population that's always under attack. If you want to show your strength, you don't go after the weakest link. You go after the strongest link. The lion that's trying to take over the pride doesn't come after the cubs. The lion that's trying to take over the pride comes after the lion. This is my pride now. Yeah, always quick to throw us under the bus. But if any issue arises where it concerns them, then let's all hold hands and let's sing and, fight the oppressors. But it's like I'm holding hands with people who want to oppress me. People want to oppress my people. So that's why, if you're not pushing these non-black people to fight the anti-blackness in their communities, to eradicate the anti-blackness in their communities, if that's not their goal, then ask yourself if that's unity or stupidity. Are they just trying to use us, our voices, our bodies, our know-how to get what they need so that would make it easier for them to oppress us? So that was my talk on this idea of unifying with other communities without really dealing with the issues that exist within those other communities and between communities. People might say that I'm being divisive, but those same people probably don't ask the hard questions of their non-black friends, family members, whatever, and they maybe don't even ask those questions of themselves. I'm going to end this segment with a song from Knox Brown called Harry's Code.
Way down, way down, the deep secret you keep that didn't weigh you down. Only now it weighs heavy on your soul. Hiding in plain sight, Lord knows you're terrified. Oh, it's weighing down on your soul. It's weighing down on your soul. There's no way now, just a long way down. The deep shame you'll feel when the truth comes out, just like the wolf in disguise, pulling wool over your eyes, hiding in plain sight, Lord knows you're terrified. Oh, it's weighing down on your soul. It's weighing down on your soul. It's weighing down on your soul. There's no way now, just a long way down. The deep shame you'll feel when the truth comes out, just like the wolf in disguise, pulling wool over your eyes, hiding in plain sight, Lord knows you're terrified. Oh, it's weighing down out! It's weighing down on your soul.
Emphasizes the forward look of
Watch
your
out!
emotion. Looks like it's still moving, even when it stops. Some design.
That was Harry's Code by Knox Brown. Please remember to like and share this video, leave a comment in the comment section, and subscribe to our channel. That was the Blackprint, and this is MJ, sending you love, peace, and ammunition.